In June 2019, the 2017 HIV statistical report was published and figures showed that of the 37,000 HIV tests conducted that year, there were 223 new cases of HIV in Belize. At December 2017, a total of 1,385 persons living with HIV were on anti-retroviral treatment, taking generic medications such as lopinavir, ritonavir to suppress the viral load and prevent transmission. 26-year-old Javier Paz was diagnosed with HIV in August and has joined the program.
I'm literally very new to the whole treatment and everything. I haven't really learned much about it, but I know enough to know, this is the easier step for me to take.
But that step has gotten difficult and life-threatening because the country has run out of the much-needed medication.
The issues that I'm having is that I cannot restock on it right now. Apparently there is none in any of the free facilities within the country. So what I have left is only 11 of them, excluding the one that I will take tonight.
So 11 pills, 11 days. Mm-hmm. What happens after the 11th day?
Well, I've been trying to reach out to organizations that I heard of to see if they can help me in getting access to medication, but it was just today that I found this out, so I haven't heard back from them or anything. I've tried reaching out to friends who live in the States that work at pharmaceutical companies that deal with these types of diseases that bring down your immune system, but they don't carry this specific type of medication either. So at this point, I cannot say what will happen.
In May of this year, the government of Belize made payments to the tune of $241,000 to an Indian pharmaceutical supplier for a total of 4,300 bottles as part of its annual unusual procurement process. The company has failed to deliver the stock, putting the lives of many at risk. Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, says that the Indian company is experiencing multiple issues with production and distribution.
We started procuring generic medications from 2006 directly from Indian companies, making us one of the countries that was procuring at one of the lower prices in the entire region. What has happened now is that companies in India which used to do business, some of them have started downscaling their production of antiretrovirals, and some of them have shifted to other medications that perhaps are more lucrative as a business. So we did our procurement to find one particular antiretroviral from April of this year. We did payment in May. We were supposed to have gotten that product in June. But because there's a downscaling of the production, there's bigger markets that are actually buying more. South Africa, for example, buys maybe 1 million bottles when I think our procurement is 3,600. So you're not going to be the first on the list even though you have paid for it.
But even so, just last week the government paid a further $260,000 for other key antiretrovirals that should be delivered within few weeks.
We were understanding that the companies were having difficulty in accessing the raw materials. You notice that earlier in the year there was a notion that some of the antihypertensive medications had cancer agents that were tainting the raw materials, and so I think they were trying to safeguard that. Mind you, that's not an excuse.
In June, the Ministry of Health realized that the antiretroviral would not be delivered according to schedule and looked to its neighbors for assistance.
Reaching out to countries to see who could loan us or donate to us, we managed to get a loan from Costa Rica. That loan is still owed, but the countries in the region are also facing the same situation. So I think it's one medication that I think we're at zero stock, which is lopinavir, ritonavir, and that's the generic name. And I'm aware that one other medication that's a triple combination where people would take one single pill, I think we have stocked that out of that. My understanding, however, is that you are not going to be able to get that one single pill, but the other ingredients are available as separate tablets. So patients are perhaps going to be getting 2-3 tablets instead of taking the one pill. So I know we have stock out of that. I am not so sure of what the status is in terms of when that particular product will arrive. In terms of the one we have stocked out, the company has told us that it's going to be here in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
But persons like Paz do not have 3 weeks. Adverse effects can be experienced by persons living with HIV if they go long enough without taking their medication. they began developing resistance to the meds.
Your body could develop some sort of resistance to the medication, which means when you start again, eventually you will notice that it's not working with you. But there would be no way to prove that because, within the country we don't have resistant testing for HIV. In this country we have first and second line medication. Once you've surpassed those medications, there's nothing else for you, which is why a lot of people are concerned about this issue because, one day is already too much without medication.
The stock of antiretrovirals put Belize's commitment to the UN 1990 goal, which in part seeks to have 90% of people living with HIV with an undetectable viral load.
We find the situation unacceptable as well because we're dealing with people's lives. As a country, we have subscribed to United Nations Joint Program on HIV and AIDS to the 1990 goals, which looks at testing 90% of persons living with HIV and AIDS and having them know their status, getting 90% of those on linked to care and on retrovirals. And the third 90 speaks to having 90% of those on antiretrovirals having a viral load suppression.
We are striving to reach for people living with HIV as a national response to have an undetectable viral load, which means that a person living with HIV not necessarily means that the virus isn't there, but it's so minute in your system, controlled by the medication, that you cannot even transmit HIV. It's controlled. And then it puts also that at risk, like if a person is undetectable and out of medication, allows the virus to replicate. Because the idea of the medication, they suppress the virus in order for the virus not to reproduce within the body.
So if we cannot effectively address pillar 2 and 3, adherence and the viral load suppression, if we are constantly having stock out of medications.
If the Indian companies was to halt production of antiretrovirals, to which company or country would the government turn to then? That is what the Ministry of Health is contemplating at the moment. Reporting for News 5, Hipolito, Novelo.